Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Gaur Shri Sangha ki. All glories to Shri Guru Shri Granda. Om Agyanachanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shigro Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Vikam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishnavana Siddha Devi Pranamami Hri Priye Pancha Kapa Druyascha Gripa Sindhu Devascha Adhikana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Chaitanya Shivasani Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you all again for coming.
Something about translation.
Yes.
Če bi kdo rabo prevod iz angleščine v slovenščino, se nam javite saj z dvigom roke, da vam podamo v tem večko slušalko.
Did we solve them? So anyone here for the first time? How effective is our translation dog? Who's the translator? Oh, I'm saying people have an earphone. Anyone here for the first time? Okay. Welcome back. Our philosophy is quite simple. Sometimes it appears to be simple, and sometimes it appears to be extremely complicated. It's actually quite simple, but the problem is we're a little complicated. Now, our philosophy deals with acquiring three basic things, namely utsaha, nishchaya, dharya, enthusiasm, confidence, and patience, which are corresponding to, patience is corresponding to eternality. If we're eternal, then there's good reason to be very patient. We have a lot of time. If we're this body, we don't have very much time. This body certainly doesn't have very much time. But we ourselves as souls, we have a long, long time. So we must get used to using our time properly. So that requires some knowledge. That knowledge is called confidence. If we have actual knowledge, we can be confident. Knowledge is two parts, namely theoretical and the other is applied. And knowledge, according to the Bhagavad Gita, actually only deals with two subject matters. So it's quite simple. If we just learn two things, it usually takes a number of lifetimes to learn. But there's only two things, although it may take many, many lifetimes to learn them. One is to realize, well, understand that we're eternal. And the knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and our relationship with Him. Now, the first thing is that we have to realize is that we're eternal. And that there is a person called God. He may not be very popular, but he won't be voted out of office. It doesn't. And nor, although since time immemorial, there's a class of people trying to do a revolution against God. They're known as Asuras. But so far, they've been quite unsuccessful. And we expect in the future, they'll wind up in the same, they'll be equally unsuccessful in the future. There is a person named God, who is God. He's also called Bhagavan, which means he's more than just a controller, he's also all attractive. Now, many of us may not have met Krishna. Perhaps none of us have directly met Krishna fully yet. But Krishna has his representatives. That's called Indus of succession. We may not believe Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, or that he came 500 years ago. Although we can go to India and we can see the holy places. I was just in Vrindavan and Mayapur, and there are literally millions of people who go there. And I can assure you most of them didn't wind up there by accident. They were on the road going to the Taj Mahal and they got lost and wound up in Vrindavan. That most people believe that the places where Krishna had his activities, there is a Govardhan Hill. I can testify, I was there. There is a Radha Kund and Shaima Kund. There are historical places, and I don't think anyone could have put Govardhan Hill there just as a tourist attraction. It's rather a big hill even now. And as far as Navadvip, there are many places there where it's alleged that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his activities, his pastimes with associates, and many millions of people go there and visit. It's not simply based upon a book we call Srimad Bhagavatam, and that this book was a fairy tale written by Srila Vyasadeva in a mountain surrounded by many exotic plants, and after trying out these plants, he got inspired and wrote the book. It's not a fairy tale or mythology written in perfect Sanskrit. In other words, there is evidence not only from Krishna himself, who spoke Bhagavad Gita, which would be sufficient evidence that there is a God, because after all, an ordinary person could not write a book or speak a book that would be equally valid 5,000 years later, valid now, and we expect to be valid many, many thousands, if not eternally, from now. And one thinks, well, how do we know it's valid? Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that our body is changing. And I can assure you that I have personal experience that my body is changing. And you might have your own personal experience that your body is also changing. But I can attest that when I was 5 years old, I was there. I have personal experience. I had a 5-year-old body. A 5-year-old body doesn't exist. But I can assure you I'm still here. And when I walk out of of this room, my body will not be exactly the same as when I walked in, but I expect to still be here as the living personality within the body. So in that sense, Krishna's explanation in the Bhagavad Gita of the eternality of the self is equally valid now as it was 5,000 years ago when he spoke Bhagavad Gita. It wasn't that 5,000 years ago the souls were eternal and now they seem to be disappearing. And the fact that Krishna says he's God and that he's controlling the universe seems equally clear now, otherwise we wouldn't have a universe. Krishna, when he was here 5,000 years ago, said he's moving the planets in their orbits, and it appears that the planets are still being moved in their orbits. The sun rose at an appointed time 5,000 years ago, and it's still rising at an appointed time right today, even right as I speak. So knowledge is there. Our realizing the knowledge will depend upon how confident we are about this particular subject matter. In other words, people are seemingly confident about many subject matters, although it's very unclear how much confidence people have about anything nowadays. If you talk to someone on the street, they'll be very adamant that they have a certain opinion about something, and 5 minutes later, without batting an eyelash, they'll have a completely opposite opinion about the same thing with equal conviction. But actual knowledge means to realize two things, as I said: confidence that we're eternal, and that is in a supreme person, and by his governance, this material universe is going on. And we have an eternal relationship with that supreme person because he happens to be with us 24 hours a day forever as the super soul. He's giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and that he exists beyond this material universe in a spiritual world where everyone there has they all have eternal bodies which have full consciousness. Not that they know everything, but they're aware of reality. And that reality is loving, blissful exchanges with the Supreme Person in varieties of services. So, when we realize we're eternal, then we can become partly, if not fully eventually, detached from all the problems of material existence. It is not that if we realize that we're eternal, there's no more material problems. It's like if we realize we're not our car, it's not that our car is going to run perfectly. No, we may realize I'm not my car, I get in my car, and most sane people don't think, as I said before, a hum car. Hum car means false ego in Sanskrit, but it also means I am the car. But because people don't have a hum car, they're not in that understanding. It doesn't mean that the car just runs perfectly. Similarly, this body is not destined to run perfectly. It's destined to grow old and eventually become diseased, and that there are rumors that even in a city as advanced as Ljubljana, once in a while someone even dies. Although I don't believe it really. That even good people sometimes die. And the bad people, of course, they die, but even good people sometimes die. So, the body will keep on changing, the soul will always remain the same. Whether, if we realize it, then of course we become free from our anxieties over the body. And we have another relationship with the Supreme Person. Now, the question is how to keep up our enthusiasm about developing our relationship with that Supreme Person. Because we're spending so much time in our relationship with this temporary body. Therefore, we have to spare some time. That there is usually in one's life some time to spare so that we can perform 5 basic activities. Namely, chanting Hare Krishna. And why chanting Hare Krishna? Because, as I said, we have to have some faith that Krishna exists. And he exists in the form of his name, with his internal energies, specifically Srimati Radharani. And that when we chant Hare Krishna, we're actually directly associating with Srimati Radharani and Krishna. Now, because we haven't realized that fully, doesn't mean it's not happening. You can live with your husband or wife for 50 years in the same building and not even be aware that they exist there, practically speaking. It's not that they don't exist. It's a question of consciousness. But that's very subtle. How can the Supreme Personality of Godhead exist in the form of sound? Because we have a certain conception of sound, a material sound. And we don't have so much experience with spiritual sound. But the fact that Krishna is present in this, when we chant Hare Krishna, and he's present, of course Krishna is present everywhere, but he becomes specifically manifest in his form as Krishna and Srimati Radharani when we chant Hare Krishna, but we can only realize it according to our consciousness. So Bhagavad Gita and our philosophy deals with our consciousness, that we have to change our consciousness. Right now, most people think they don't have to change their consciousness, they have to change everyone else. In the material world, the only problem with the material world is not themselves, it's everything else in the material world besides themselves. Therefore, to recognize that we need a change of consciousness, that's why Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord Krishna. Specifically, to begin with, the fact that we're eternal spiritual souls, and we're not aware of that. That should be a point of concern for us. And the fact that this body that we are aware of, that we're working very sincerely to maintain, cannot be maintained perpetually, and that it actually has a use to realize that we're eternal and to realize Krishna. So that we have to become aware of. The fact that presently we're not aware, and that we only have so much time in this body at least to become aware of ourselves and the Supreme Person. And we should utilize some part of our time for that, what we probably would consider a great adventure. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it quite simple: chant Hare Krishna. But not just chant Hare Krishna, also read Prabhupada's books, study the philosophy, so we can learn how to chant Hare Krishna. Not just chant Hare Krishna, but chant in the proper attitude, in the proper mood. So that's very, very subtle. But luckily, if we try to engage in Krishna service with some kind of regulation, consistently day after day, then Krishna says, Didami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Then gradually the inconceivable way of chanting, according to the advice of our acharyas, namely like a child calling for its mother, will gradually be revealed to us. That we are very tiny little souls, and that we actually really need Krishna, Srimati Radharani. That there is no other shelter in this or any other world except for Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani, and how to chant not only calling for them, but also how to calling for them lovingly, with feeling. So if we're interested in doing that, then there's a process of learning how to do that, and part of it is just trying to do it, and trying to find out how we should do it. So Prabhupada's books are there, and then of course, for practical service, we have deities. because we have to live in this world. Practical means deity worship. So deity worship means we have to, in the family and anywhere we're living, whether in a temple, in our family, the basic problem of material existence is also quite simple. We need something to eat. If we get something to eat, most of our problems are solved. And of course, if we live in a cold country like Slovenia, we also need some covering. And a little fresh water is also good. And if we're really fortunate, we can get some air to breathe. Fresh air, that is. So the basic necessities of life are quite simple, actually. Now they've made it, people, because they are simple, they've diverted people's attention from God consciousness with the extra time they have, and they put them on to becoming addicted to social media. And before that it was television, or the movies, or so many distractions. So people think that this is a necessity of life. I have to breathe air, I have to drink water, I have to eat food, and I have to clothe myself, and I have to go on Facebook and other social media. I can't live without them. At least not for too long. But there is time to chant Hare Krishna if we want to. When one devotee asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, there's no time for chanting Hare Krishna. I'm working 18 hours a day serving Krishna. How do I have time? So Prabhupada asked, are you eating? Prasad. The devotee said, yes. Are you sleeping? Yes. So if you only have 6 hours, then stop eating and sleeping, but chant Hare Krishna. Use the time for that. Of course, if we were faced with the option of chanting Hare Krishna, if we had to give up our eating and sleeping, somehow or another we'd probably find time during the rest of the day to chant Hare Krishna outside of our eating and sleeping. And hearing Prabhupada's books is actually essential. There's no bar, there's no law so far in Slovenia. You can't read books in your house. It's a question of desire. People read the newspapers to find out what's going on. Although the people writing the newspapers have no idea what's really going on. But in these books can actually tell us what's actually going on and what we should do so we can actually make some change in the world. There have been so many controversies, so many scandals that go on, conspiracy theories. People have uncovered the truth about all these different intrigues that are going on, and they've made absolutely no change in the world. But the devotees can actually make a change in the world if they make a change in their lives. And making a change in the life means, instead of picking up and reading all this nonsense that's going on in the world and becoming concerned about it, something that we can't do anything about, we should actually make a difference in the world by finding out what we should do in the world to actually make a difference. And only Krishna and his representatives, such as Srila Prabhupada, can actually tell us how to live life in such a world as to actually make a difference here, in our own life and in other people's lives. Then, of course, we have deities. Because Krishna is so kind, he comes so that we can actually practically apply the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita even in our homes. We can convert our homes into a temple rather than maintaining some material conception of where we're living. The God has come, Krishna has come, in a very benevolent form, whether especially as Gaur Nitai, so that we can serve him even in our home and make our home into Vaikuntha. And then, of course, the association of devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, whoever we meet, we should try to help them become Krishna conscious. So if we want a nice family life, there's only one solution. There may be many, many people, they go to universities and they get their degrees in family, counseling, whatever else. But they really cannot help very much. The only real solution is to act on the spiritual platform. The only permanent solution. That is to recognize that I may have a wife, or I may have a husband, I may have children, I may have so many relationships, but ultimately my real relationship is with Krishna. And therefore, whoever I meet, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I should consider what Krishna would like me to do to help this particular living entity make progress in their relationship with Krishna. If we think like that, Krishna will give us so much intelligence how to properly act with others so we can actually help them on their path to devotional service. And there's endless varieties of relationships, and there's possibility of endless varieties of Krishna's response, how we should act. But just the fact that we're acknowledging who we are and who others are is a very big step forward in our reviving our relationship with Krishna and our properly acting with others. Then, of course, living in a holy place. As I mentioned, creating a spiritual atmosphere can be done in this age just by chanting Hare Krishna, or hearing about Lord Krishna through the authorized books, such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, just by worshiping the deities in the temple, just by establishing a proper relationship with other people, or even other living beings in relation to Krishna, will create a spiritual atmosphere. Why? Because it'll help us remember Krishna. And wherever Krishna is there in a devotional attitude, there is actually Vrindavan. As I said before, when Srila Prabhupada got one letter from one Gurukul student, and the Gurukul student sent Prabhupada his mathematics test, where he had gotten a good score, because he was able to realize that 1 + 1 is equal to 2, and 3 + 2 is equal to 5. So Prabhupada said, congratulations on this, completing your mathematical test, but you should know higher mathematics, that is, that Krishna plus anywhere is equal to Vrindavan. So if you always remember Krishna, then you'll always be in Vrindavan. So that's the higher mathematics that everyone should learn, that we have to put Krishna in our lives, and that will actually make a difference in our existence and our relation with others, and change this world from going to a one-stop visit to Yamaraj to going back to Vaikuntha. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Comments? So the purpose is that if we want to be inspired, the inspiration will be there if we take advantage, especially of these 5 powerful processes that Rupa Goswami recommends in the Nectar Devotion, which will allow us to associate with Krishna and his divine energy and develop the mood of divine devotional service to Krishna, following the mood of Srimati Radharani and her actual representatives. Any questions? Yes.
So, if I understand correctly, we can affect with chanting Mahamantra also the other people environments?
Well, if Krishna's there, it certainly has a big effect. Now, I have personal experience. Well, I'm sure we all have experience. Otherwise, most of us wouldn't be here unless we had some experience that Krishna and his name are actually not different. But when one is a very powerful personality like Srila Prabhupada, who was thinking about Krishna, and Krishna was there, when Srila Prabhupada chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna was present. He's there when we chanted Hare Krishna, but Prabhupada was a transparent via media. So when he chanted Hare Krishna, the effect manifests itself in a way which was tangible to others who were present with him. But if we just chant Hare Krishna and follow the instructions of Prabhupada, how we can chant Hare Krishna so we can equally realize Krishna as Srila Prabhupada did, then we'll actually realize what this is all about. I hope that answers your question. Yes?
Is it important to manage this this ordinary material life if you want to?
Manage our
If you want to surrender to Krishna.
Yes, then you have to do what Krishna
To go
wants.
to work in this kind of nonsense.
Yeah, you don't have to go to work. Especially if you don't have to eat.
Sorry.
And if you don't have to eat, we assume you also don't have to sleep.
But
And there won't be any problem. But if those other two things have to be there, like eating, sleeping, and some kind of protection, and if you have a family, then you might consider that you might need some substance. You could try putting up your hands and hoping the demigods will provide everything. But that doesn't work, then you might have to get a job.
But if you go to temple,
What's that?
if you go to temple,
If you,
they provide people
The temple.
donations.
yes, the temple can provide those who are living in the temple, but even those who are living in the temple, they have to go out and perform service. They also have to work.
But for Krishna.
Yes, and anyone can work in their job for Krishna, but they should give the results to Krishna.
Thank you.
So I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Thank you, destruction, Kija. Prabhupada,
Sorry,